morning, everyone. We are going to be chanting the Great Bell Chant, which you can find in the front page of your chant books. It should say the Great Bell Chant, the end of suffering. And you can chant it together if you feel comfortable, or you can just listen along. And after the chanting, after the bell chant, we will observe noble silence until the end of service. May the sound of this bell penetrate deep into the cosmos. Even in the darkest spots, living beings are able to hear it clearly, so that all suffering in them ceases. Understanding comes to their heart, and they transcend the path of sorrow and death. The universal Dharma door is already open. The sound of the rising tide is heard clearly. The miracle happens. A beautiful child appears in the heart of the lotus flower. One single drop of the compassionate water is enough to bring back the refreshing spring to our mountains and rivers. Listening to the bell, I feel the afflictions in me begin to dissolve. My mind is calm, my body relaxed. A smile is born on my lips. Following the sound of the bell, my breath brings me back to the safe island of mindfulness. In the garden of my heart, the flowers of peace bloom beautifully.
I'd like to invite our incense offerer. If you can pull out the incense offering in your booklets, and we can chant together. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding, slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everybody's doing good. I also want to thank everybody who came out yesterday for our retreat. We were small but mighty. I want to give a thanks to Joyce and Shu, too, for helping me through that. I do recognize at least one face, which is super embarrassing for me because now you know I'm an outfit repeater. I have a couple announcements before we get started. Anybody with small children, or if you just need some time to step away, you can go through this first curtain just past the Bodhidharma, but before you get to the Avalokitesvara down there. We've got a bathroom down there. We have some Legos. As long as you are under the age of 99, you are welcome to play with those. Also, we do ask that we don't cross in front of the dais. If you do have to get up, if you can just walk on the back. And also, usually when we enter the temple, we give a nice bow, hello. And when we exit, we also bow. And when we first cross our statue of the Buddhist here, we give a little bow too. And I like to say that we're not entering a sacred space, we're creating it. So we got to all work together on that one. Other than that, why don't we get chanting? So if you'll stand and turn to page 7. I go for refuge to Buddha, the deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free of their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. If you'll turn to the next page, we'll do the Heart Sutra together. Dhamma Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna paramita, receive the emptiness of all 5 skandhas and deliver all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form.
The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No ear, no tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, no extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna. Paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisvaha. Brahma prajna paramita hridaya sutra.
Thank you. The name of my talk today is It's Not About You. I wanted to start this about 30 years ago, actually about 30 years ago exactly, in 1994. There was a blackout in New York City. And during this blackout, there are a couple friends that had gathered. They lived in a really, really nice apartment. It was actually just above a coffee shop that never had any lines, and the best seats were always available. And the apartment they lived in was much too nice for anybody in any of their tax brackets. But I'm going to ask you all to look past that for now. Their next door neighbor, Joey, decided to come over and check on them, bringing the only candles that he had, which was a menorah. So he brought the fully lit menorah in, along with all the other candles that they had arranged. And they decided to have a fun night of it. During the night, Joey realized that his other friend, Ross, had been flirting with Rachel. And once Rachel walked away, Joey talked to Ross and said, it's never going to happen. And Ross said, what are you talking about? And that's when Joey said the words that have stuck in our lexicon for 30 years. Said, Ross, you're in the friend zone. If you haven't figured this out yet, I'm talking about the sitcom Friends from the 1990s. It hasn't aged too well, but a lot of us still hold it dear to our hearts. But this is the first time that phrase was ever spoken, which you think I'd be a little bit older than that. I don't know, because it seems to be such a thing. The funny thing about the idea of the friend zone is that it fails to look at any other perspective except for the male perspective in relation to everybody else. I want this, but you're just sticking me to be your friend. Ironically, there hasn't yet come up a term for a person who's pretending to be your friend just to get sex. And that's where I kind of want to talk about how so much of our way that we look at life fails to see the perspective of others. Instead of, thinking that maybe, this isn't a mutual feeling, maybe that I'm just seeing this person as a means to an end. We just see that, oh, I deserve to be this person's girlfriend. Why doesn't Rachel like me? I'm doing all the right things and saying all the right things. This slot machine isn't working. I also want to talk about my work. I work with kids, specifically kids with autism. And there was one day that something happened that I think really sort of highlighted this. And if you've ever worked with kids or been around kids or have kids, they're really great teachers because they kind of get down to the foundations of human interactions as they're trying to figure things out. We had somebody who was graduating the program. They were moving away. And so we wanted to do something special because we had been working with him for a very long time. So we decided to go out and get a cake and kind of put up a couple banners and just make a little party of it, a nice send-off. So as he came in the door, we were all ready to celebrate him. We had the cake out, we had all the banners up. And just at that moment, another kid walked up to him and said, I hate you. You're stupid. I'm glad you're leaving. And he just looked at us and said, what did I do? like, what did I say? Why, I don't understand. The thing that he failed to see was that in that moment, it wasn't about him. The person who lashed out to them has a huge history of abandonment, of people who aren't quite there for him, of the people who care for him have to split their attention between lots of people. So when he saw that all the attention and all the people he was working with were going to the child we were celebrating, it brought back a whole life of history of this. It would have been completely wrong for the first child to say that this is all about me. What did I do wrong? Why are you lashing out at me? And that's a really hard lesson. Oftentimes when people lash out at us or we get punched in the face or called bad names, we're the last things that have to do with any of it. There's a whole history behind those actions. It's not about us. It's about something much, much bigger. And not only can that help you when you're having really hard interactions with people, but it can also help you to be a little bit more compassionate because you know that there's a whole history behind the actions of others. It's not just about bad seeds or bad people, but circumstances that led up to this moment. I also want to take this lesson and make it a little bigger, maybe bigger than just one-on-one connections. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, way down south, much hotter, middle of the desert. And I come from a mixed race family. My father is Mexican. Talking with my grandmothers and my aunts and uncles, they say that we come from the Huichol tribe from northern Mexico. And then the desert in the area that I grew up with, the indigenous people were known as the Pueblo people. And so being far away from home in a very, let's just say, a white-centric culture, I have to fight really hard to stay connected to my ancestors. And I like to do a lot of research for fun just to try to stay connected. And one of the rabbit holes that I fell into has to do with a lot of the architecture of the Pueblo people in northern Mexico and southern Arizona. And there's something really cool about the way that they build their buildings. First off, they try their very hardest not to disrupt the way that nature set out. So, for instance, when they're building their structures, they usually build within the mountains instead of on top of the mountains. Maybe within natural divots or caves, or they'll even carve out little caves so that the natural line of the canyons and caves are undisturbed. And actually, if you were to come upon some of their ruins, you wouldn't immediately see the houses until you got a little bit closer and notice there's almost like windows in the sides of the cliffs. The other thing that they would do is they would make these really massive and cohesive sort of family houses, multi-family houses. And through research, they found that they had this 7-generational model where one person would start the project with a very clear plan in mind, and it would take 7 generations of their families until it finally was completed. It can't be about you. If you're going to build something thinking of nature and undisturbing it, it's not about you. If you're going to start a project that won't be completed till 7 generations, it can't be about you. And I feel like this is something we've lost in our own culture, where we bulldoze over the mountain. We make nature our own and put it up. And where our houses, they only have to last until our mortgage is up or until we can flip it and buy a better one. I know very few people who buy a house thinking, you know what, my great grand kids are going to live here one day. I doubt most of our houses will last that long. There's a collectivism in this thought that I think is very, very sacred that we need to use. And I'm actually going to ask you some questions. And I don't know if we have a mic available. If not, I can echo back as well at what you're saying. But I don't think that this is completely lost. And so I want to ask you all, the 7-generational model, I bet there's very few people who can name 7 generations away from you, who know a name of an ancestor that lived that far away. There might be one, and I'd say you're very lucky that your lineage hasn't been disrupted, as a lot of ours has, especially if you come from Black and brown people in the United States. But is there anything that you carry on, any traditions, any part of your culture, any ideas or thoughts that have lasted 7 generations? And I'm going to ask. I would like to hear back because I'm curious too. It's hard, isn't it? And it's a little sad that we don't have those things. I'll tell you one thing, and maybe this will help alleviate it. I know that just being part of this temple, we really hold our lineage to be sacred. So when I took my vows to become a priest, part of that was writing out my lineage of myself, my teacher, my teacher's teacher, and thank heavens that people are really into that, because I can trace it all the way back to the Buddha 2,500 years ago. And as you're here sitting and studying, that's our 7 generations right there, right? If nothing else. I also think of some other things that I might have in my life that might last 7 generations. I might not know names and faces, but I try to honor that in the way that I cook and I eat. I'm sure many of you have recipes that maybe are connected to your culture that you still from time to time try to make. There's something sacred about that, especially when none of you raised your hands when I asked you. The little things that we have are so important. I think there's a balance, because a lot of our culture and ancestors have betrayed a lot of us. And there tends to be a lot of burning things down and starting over, which I think that there's a time for. But I hope that we don't also forget the importance of preserving the things that have been passed down too, especially the important things. Maybe the things that are even older than the hate and the pain that have been, thrown at our generations too. It's not about you is a lot bigger than your interactions with the one-on-one people. It's making sure that we're building things without ourselves in mind, but with the entire world in mind. I feel like that's where you find compassion and true giving, because true compassion happens non-transactionally. We're not just doing good things because we know that we're going to get something good in return. The person who started those 7 generational buildings weren't going to see any benefits from that in their lifetimes. Not only that, but their kids weren't going to see any benefits from that. That's such a strong, selfless act that really was a giant hug to the entire world and all the generations that went beyond us and before us. And I feel like if you can take that sort of energy in your life, that it's not about me, it's really hard to not just be compassionate as a result of that. So I'm going to leave you all with a little bit of homework. None of you raised your hands, and I was very disappointed. So I want you all to do some research. I don't care what your background is from. If you don't have that because it was taken from you or there's no way to repair that, there are rituals that we do here at the temple, and maybe that's worth looking into. Yesterday, I talked about the mala beads, which goes back so far, it's even older than Buddha himself. And yet, I see lots of people wearing theirs today, and that could be 3,000 years old. That's more than 7 generations. So do some homework. See if you can find those things that you can honor and carry on and maybe pass on to people around you. And I hope that through that act of looking back, you can be a little bit more compassionate when looking forward. Why don't we get ready for some meditation? So if we can get comfortable. And as we sit, as thoughts arise, I want you just to let them come up and then let them go again without judgment, without labeling them. As sounds arise, sometimes the building's AC kicks on and the whole temple breathes at you really heavy. Let it without any sort of judgment or labeling. If you hear a motorcycle revving outside, be happy. That's somebody else's entire life in that moment right there that we're connected to, even if it's just through the sound. Life is going on not only within this temple, but all around. I think it's really beautiful that we're right in the center of the city with all the noise and all the people walking around us, the sounds of the coffee shop getting ready to open. I want to feel connected to that during this sit. Don't try to push it away or say it's messing up my Zen, kind of embrace it and feel your part in all of it. You're never really in silence, are you? Things always happen around us. I'd like to take some time to address any joys or concerns that people have. Before we do start this too, I want to make sure everybody has my email, which is sunshin. My name is Sunshin, SONSHIN, at zengr.org. And the reason that I'm saying that now is that, I would be more than happy if you want to reach out to me. If you all have any concerns, be more than happy to do any sort of remembrance services. If anybody's going through grief or wellness services, if anybody is not feeling that great or has any friends or relatives that could use a visit. So feel free to reach out to me. Does anybody have any joys or concerns they'd like to bring up?
Well, I went on a nice little bike ride with a good friend of mine yesterday, and stopped by his mom's house to pick something up. I can't remember what, maybe a bike lock, but I got to finally meet his dog, his Labradoodle, that he's been talking about since I've known him for the past 6 months. Apparently thinks the world of her, and he definitely acted like it. And I got to meet her too. And meeting a new dog and spending a good, even just 5 minutes petting a dog, hanging out with a dog, it's always a cause for great joy for me. So.
Morning, Sangha. Yeah, I experienced a joy, but I think it's much more profound than a joy yesterday, and a very uncanny of experiences. So I participated in Jump for Recovery. So I jumped from 17,000 feet yesterday, and I've never been, the whole experience from the beginning to the end, never been so at peace and calm and serene in my entire life. Like going in the plane, like it's not about skydiving. Like this planet is absolutely beautiful. And like to be up 17,000 feet in Grand Haven and look down at the greens and blues, it was such a prolific experience. And like, yeah, it was a joy, but it was much more than a joy. It was peace, like utter peace, like no fear at all. And then to jump from a plane with like, without experience an ounce of fear, it was talking about it still blows my mind. Like, did I really experience it just like that? But it was an amazing experience, and yeah, I'm really grateful to share it.
Hi. I wanted to share that a few nights ago, I went on a little solo hike in my favorite woods, and I maybe stayed the tiniest bit too late past dusk, and it was starting to get a little dark, a little creepy in the woods. And I'm sharing this as a joy because on my way out of the woods, I was just trying to remind myself that anything I'm feeling scared of is just probably in my head. But then I had the thought that I could just take a second and bow to the forest and make it a sacred space. And it made me feel so calm and at peace. And then I left the forest slowly and calmly and felt great. So that's my joy.
Good morning. I'd like to share that my partner and housemate is having an orchiectomy next week, which is kind of a big deal for us. If you don't know what that means, look it up. But it's just keep her in your thoughts, please. It's important to us.
I have a joy, and this might make you especially happy. After your talk, I was thinking about something we did as children, and I'm 80, so this was over 70 years ago. We always went to family reunions, and this was my Polish side of the family. And we'd go to my great-grandparents' farm, and people would bring food, and I remember they'd put the food on tables, but I don't think they had folding chairs then. So we all sat on the ground. No organized games. We would just talk with one another and share food, and it was wonderful, and we all loved it. So a few years ago, pre-COVID, we decided we wanted to start doing that, and we do that now yearly. And it's a little different because a lot of people move away. So a lot of the family, is living all over the United States, but we still do it, and those that can come do. And my brother sets up his genealogy table with books of stories about my parents and whatever we have to contribute. And we just all really appreciate it and appreciate them for starting that tradition.
That's wonderful.
So I've had enough time. I was able to identify 7 generations, and my mother was born on Pine Ridge, and so I was able to trace it back. And she would always say that we're responsible for 7 generations, and that's really framed my life in terms of what I do, what I say. And what she also taught us was a profound respect for elders and a profound respect for the beauty of nature. So she told us we were responsible for 7 generations, and that was a real gift. Where? Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My joy today is that my friend Erin and their partner are able to be here today. They live out in California, so I was just really thankful that they made the time to be able to see me and son Shin and to be able to be here at the service today.
Do we have anything online? All right. Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Why don't we take a couple moments to hold that all in? All right. Now I have to take some time to do the announcements. They're always interesting at the end of the month because half of these are no longer relevant. So you get to hear about all the things you missed out on, I guess. But some of these things are ongoing. So we do have an online meditation group, and they meet on Wednesday, 6 to 6:45 p.m., and that is via Zoom link. You can reach out to Kunga for more information about that. We also have an Avattamsaka Sutra study group, and they meet Thursdays. We've got one July 11th and 25th, which I believe always already happened. I'm not sure if we have any more. Something.
It happens every other week.
Every other week. So, okay. And then you can contact Will or Direction Shu right over here for more information about that. We also have our board meeting's already happened this month, so I'm not going to talk about it. But if you're around next month, you can come. We also have, we have our introduction to meditation from the Tibetan perspective. So I know that a lot of you have been asking about diving into some other schools of thought. And so we have that on August 10th. And that's going to be led by Ige-su, who is a practitioner in that tradition. And that's going to be very exciting. And so that's going to be 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's right here in the temple. And just make sure that you register before the day prior on the 9th. And again, that'll be Saturday, August 10th. We also have our Buddhist-based recovery meetings that meet, and we have several of those. We have on Friday, 10:05 a.m. the meditation begins to 10:30 a.m. meetings begin, and that meets at Garfield Park. Do we still have the Wednesday and Friday meetings as well? Yep. Wednesday and Monday, yep. And then on Monday at 6:30 p.m., meditation 7 p.m., and that's here at the temple. And then Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. at the Alano Club, that you can go to those. Do we have any other announcements today that anybody else has? If not, I know we don't necessarily do the dawn announcement every week, but I'm going to cheat and do one, if that's okay. So Dana is our tradition of giving. And I know today they talked about giving a little bit and how we can use our sort of non-self nature to be more giving. I know immediately when you hear that, you think money. And yes, we do have donation boxes, but also there are much more ways that you can give around here than just with your money. Your time is probably a little bit more valuable to us. And the easiest way to start that is even if you just want to show up on Sundays at 9 a.m. is usually when we start setting up, and you can find one of us and just ask, what can I do to help? And I think that's a really big way to do that. We also always need volunteers for our tech crew. And I know that it can seem a little intimidating, especially if you don't have a background in a lot of technology, but we have many people that are willing to give you the training needed, and it's not that difficult. We've got things pretty automated around here and set up, so I don't want that to be a deterrent for anybody. But I know that our tech team has been small, and I'm very grateful for them for keeping things going, but they would love some extra support on that as well. And if you're just curious of other ways that you can give, just reach out. Let us know what you have to offer. And we want this to feel like a collaborative Sangha. Well, with that, why don't we stand for our closing gathas? These are on page 9, I believe? Yes. All right. For all unskillful actions ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, I now atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if we could face each other. Thank you all for attending. I will invite you all downstairs for some tea if you would like, or any discussions or anything or questions that you have for any of us. Thank you.